The Great Lakes Basin is massive. So large, it's hard to comprehend. It contains over 20% of the world's surface freshwater and 90% of North America's surface freshwater. This freshwater resource has been under attack. Climate change has affected water temperatures and weather patterns, and pollutants from residential, agricultural, and industrial sources have impacted water quality. My wife and I wanted to get a feel for how large the Great Lakes truly are. We set out to paddle all 5 Great Lakes in a single day, from sunrise to sunset. We also thought it was important to leave each beach cleaner than when we arrived, so we chose to do a 10-minute beach cleanup at all 5 lakes. This is the story of our journey, traveling sunrise to sunset, paddling and cleaning all 5 Great Lakes on an epic road trip with friends. We planned to start on Lake Ontario as it was the furthest east and allowed us to capitalize on the most amount of daylight. We stayed in a hotel in Hamilton, Ontario, and rested up for what was going to be a long next day. Our energy was high as we unloaded the boards. The morning air was warm already as highs across the Great Lakes were expected to be in the 90s. Lake Ontario was glassy and the sun lit up the sky. We could see large boulders through the crystal clear water beneath us as our paddleboards glided across the water. There was a definite balance between trying to experience each lake, but also keep track of time as we only had 15 and a half hours of daylight to travel the 600 miles.
This is Dan Bonner. He and his wife are going to paddleboard across all 5 Great Lakes, even though it's going to be one of the hottest days of the year. What made you decide to do this today? You guys are wearing recycled clothing. Is that what's...
Yeah, so the local brand from our hometown, Muskegon, Michigan, is Oshki, and this shirt is made from, there's 6 plastic water bottles that are used to make this shirt.
Okay, and so let's look at your paddle boards over there. Your wife, Anastasia, she ran away from the interview, but she's somewhere.
Leaving each beach cleaner than before our arrival was important to us. We could have just traveled from lake to lake and still had an amazing time. But taking the extra time to respect each lake individually was our end goal. During the drive to Lake Erie, there was a brief lost passport snafu that delayed us a bit. But after 30 minutes, we were back on the road. Port Stanley was a super quaint little beach town with coffee shops, unique houses, and a secluded beach tucked away at the end of the road.
Lake Erie, we here for you, Erie. We gonna...
Growing up in the Great Lakes, you always hear of Lake Erie catching fire or having crazy toxic algal blooms. But Port Stanley truly was impressive. It was only 10 in the morning, and there were already 20 or so people ready for a beach day, with their umbrellas, beach chairs, coolers, and half-built sandcastles. The locals really knew how to enjoy the lake. After paddling around and trying to ride some smaller waves, we packed the car and took advantage of the last few moments to stretch our legs before setting off on the longest section of the road trip, 320 miles to Alpena, Michigan. made sense to visit Lake Huron in a memorable park, and Alpena's Mishikiwas Park was it.
Left or right? Learn about the acronym HOMES, you know, and you learn about other Great Lakes, but rarely do you get to see all of them in one day. And so a great way to do it is on a paddleboard, I think.
The drive along Lake Huron on US 23 was beautiful. But man, it felt so good to get back on the water after driving 300 miles non-stop. Lake Huron is the second largest Great Lake and home to over 30,000 islands. Being from the west side of Michigan, we rarely get a chance to get in Lake Huron, so it was great to experience what the east side of Michigan had to offer. This would have been an amazing spot to have a picnic or throw a frisbee. But with only 5 hours until sunset, we had to keep moving. If you've never been before, a trip to the very top of Michigan's Lower Peninsula is a must. At no point in Michigan are you more than 85 miles from any of the Great Lakes, and that is truly felt here. After pulling into the parking lot, we realized we would have to dip into Lake Huron once more to paddle into Lake Michigan as we were blocked by a fence. Paddling under the Mackinac Bridge was definitely a highlight of the trip. You could feel the excitement amongst the team as we cleaned up Mackinac City Park. We knew that barring any unforeseen challenges, we were on track to paddle Lake Superior by sunset. The drive across the Mackinac Bridge and amongst the pine forest in the Upper Peninsula after a full day's travel from Great Lake to Great Lake was a high that you experience rarely in life. We pulled into the parking lot and unloaded our boards. There was a sidewalk that led down to a picturesque beach, guarded by a gigantic white lighthouse. It was funny to be able to see Canada yet again, this time across Lake Superior, the country we had started our journey in only 15 hours before. We had done it. As we paddled out, the colors began to change, and Mother Earth celebrated our accomplishment by putting on one of the most memorable sunsets of our lifetime. This was a day we will never forget. A road trip set in our memories forever. A trip we shared with family, great friends, and beautiful surroundings. We encourage you to create your own journey. Get out and appreciate the Great Lakes for yourself. Because with a better understanding of this invaluable resource comes a greater desire to protect it.